The media component is one of 4 that make up the Business Enabling Environment program. One of the objectives of BEEP was to support media houses in Zimbabwe to design, launch, and market new business media products that are audience and issue-based.
When this program started, the media component was looking at how the media market system works. It had been realized that there were constraints in the market system. The program as a whole was looking at improving the business environment, and it was felt that the media had a role to play, especially in facilitating dialogues around business issues. So studies were done at the beginning of the program which showed that the media wasn't doing as well as it could in facilitating dialogues around business issues. So some of the constraints that were identified then was that the media now tended to focus on issues of personalities instead of issues, where you hear the media looking at sensationalization of stories, and because of the polarization in the politics, the business issues were beginning to suffer. We're not having the investigative content that we could have heard from the media when we're looking at business issues. And it had been noted that the media plays a very big role in facilitating dialogue. We've got our government on one side and the private sector demanding reforms on the other side, and government is made to supply the reforms that are needed. And the media comes in to facilitate that dialogue, to make sure that there is enough information for the people in this dialogue cycle to make informed decisions. And it was felt that the media wasn't doing that. Also, one of the other constraints that we identified was the training. The media houses themselves felt that the institutions that were doing the training for journalists was not giving them the right journalists in terms of business reporting. So it was felt that there was need to support our academic institutions to do more in supporting the training of journalists. Then another constraint that was identified was that our media houses were not getting enough audience research, enough feedback from their audiences and readers. That of course, you've got one that was coming out once a year, but the media houses themselves were not doing much to get feedback from their readers and audiences. So the tricky part now was that how then were the media houses selling their products to advertisers if they didn't know who their readers were, how their readers felt, or what their readers wanted. So in the end, we realized that our media houses were now selling space instead of content. So they'll go to an advertiser and say, we've got space on page 4. If you want to advertise, you can advertise on that page. But the system is supposed to work in such a way that you've got content, and the content attracts readers, and then we are selling the readers of that content to advertisers. So that wasn't how our media was working anymore. So that was another system constraint that we have. And then also we noted that for a media house to work properly and journalists to do their jobs, they need the news sources. And in terms of business, the news sources were in the private sector had become reluctant to talk to media houses. Most of them will tell you they're afraid of being misquoted. Most of them will tell you that once they talk to journalists, the issues that came out were not the issues that they wanted to come out. So at the end of the day, we had news sources being reluctant to speak to the news producers. So those were the constraints that had been identified at the beginning of the program and that the program sought to address.
Market analysis conducted at the beginning of the program had shown a highly polarized media, with the prevailing model being one of selling airtime and space to political allies and sponsors. The focus on producing issue-based business environment investigative content that was targeted at the masses of micro and small Zimbabwean entrepreneurs was absent.
The Business Environment Enabling Program, you as a whole used the M4P strategy. So we came into the system just as a facilitator, but not players in the system. So this meant that we needed to identify the demand and supply. For instance, we then looked at the media houses and said, okay, they need to produce improved and new products on business. What did they need to do this? They said they needed training. They said they needed some mentorship. So we then identified these mentors. So we had some newsrooms like the Sunday Mail, example, that worked with one of our mentors, Chris Chinaka. We had partners like FM, where they had mentors such as Godfrey Mtizwa. We had ZBC, the radio station SFM. They had also some mentors who worked with them. We had chronically, they also worked with Rangamberi. So it was a question of identifying their needs and then making sure that they hook up with the people who could supply those services. We also noted with the challenge that we had on media relations, where our business people were now reluctant to talk to the media. So we identified some media relations people, and we got some trainers who came and trained them. So these media relations people could now go into the industry, go to the various partner organizations in the business sector and offer their services, give them skills, equip them with skills. How do you talk to journalists? How do you stick to your story? Because sometimes they're complaining that you go to the media, you have got a certain story that you want to tell, and then you get sidetracked because the journalists are asking you about issues that you're not prepared for and you don't know how to respond to those. So they were being equipped with such skills. And then also with our universities, we had partnerships with the university, with NAST in Bulawayo, and also GZU in Masvingo, where we help them develop curricula that will then address the gaps that had been identified in training business journalists. And also for audience research, we made sure that we identified the universities and the Harare Polytech that helped particular partner media houses to carry out audience research so they could see that this could be done and in an affordable and much cheaper way.
Chris Chinaka is a veteran journalist, media trainer and mentor who understands the challenges facing the media industry and its coverage of business issues.
It's a time for the media as well as the country to reflect, first on its role, and secondly on whether it is focusing on the issues of the day and of the future. And thirdly, for me, on whether it is accountable in the manner in which it is performing those roles. Generally, it went very well for two reasons. I think we're looking at it gave us an opportunity to look at what capacities there were in the media, and secondly to address some of those gaps that could have been in our media, and which gaps we need to fill up in order to do our work better. The three lessons which should be drawn from that exercise. The first one is that we need continuous capacity building within the media sector for it to remain relevant, particularly now with the proliferation of social media. We need our media to distinguish itself in terms of verifying facts, in terms of focusing on the priorities of the day, to do that. We need our media to respond to the needs of the general public in that respect. I think that those were the lessons learned. The other lesson outside capacity building in terms of identification that we learned also was that we need to be persuading our media first to organize their newsrooms or themselves, whether they are freelance journalists, organize themselves in a manner in which they are able to specialize in certain fields, but also to distinguish issues of programming from personalities, that journalism is more relevant when it focuses on issues than on personalities. One of the benefits of the Zimbisa program, which I saw, was a focus on persuading a media that is obsessed with politics. I'm sorry to say, obsessed with politics, sometimes harps on the hyper-personalization of stories. It was to persuade that media that beyond the personalities, beyond politics, there are everyday issues that concern people around health, around education, around commerce and industry, around business and finance, around the agriculture, farming, and all the other activities that people do to earn their livings. I thought that came as a huge contribution. I think it's a legacy that the Zimbisa program left in the newsrooms in terms of training, in terms of focus. Should they be doing more? I think so. I think I'm sad to see that it's not continuing. That we should have found a way of continuing either with the mentoring system or finding a way of ensuring that issue-based reporting, issue-based journalism thrives, because at the end of the day, that is the journalism that serves the ordinary people.
The work that BEEP initiated with the various media houses led to some improvements in the coverage of business issues in the media, with the Sunday Mail introducing 2 new products, the SME Monthly Focus and Womenomics, while the Chronicle introduced the SME's Weekly Corner, and Ya FM, a 30-minute program focusing on mining issues.
We are 2 years now, and as we started as a radio station, we had relatively new personnel. We're on radio, our news department, our marketing department, and most of these were pretty much new people to the industry for starters. And then we had assistants. For instance, we had a training workshop that was carried out by Zimbisa in Shishawane at Port Hotel, whereby they came through and did some sort of one-on-one training with our personnel, as just to give them an understanding of what they need to do as journalists. And it was quite helpful for most of them, because it was one of the first outside our framework training exercise, which actually involved externals, that gave them an eye-opening opportunity to realize that the industry that they're in, as well as what they have to do, is quite broader than what they thought. And that really did help us to start off as a station as we started to operate in our respective locality.
Over and above equipping media houses to improve capacity in developing audience-focused and issue-based content, the program sought to help them make effective contribution to public-private dialogue on business environment reform.
Apart from the training that we received from Zimbisa, we also hold what we call investment forums. Investment forums are gatherings that we have put together to assist the mining communities to be in touch with the business world, and to pretty much also get you to understand what happens or what is expected, of them by the outside business world as well. I can namely say that we had a business investment forum whereby we brought in the Reserve Bank Governor, Dr. Mangunja, to Sishane, which was the first time that he had actually been to that part of the country. And then we had assistance from Zimbisa to actually carry out that particular forum, whereby there was quite a number of miners that came through. Mimosa came through, and that's the first time that the Reserve Bank Governor managed to actually tour and get to understand the troubles and the problems that were being faced by the mining companies in the particular locality. And this year we also managed to bring in ZIMRA officials. As you might know that taxation is an issue that is also touched into the mining sector, as a lot of artisanal miners were reported to have been identified as another sector that needed to be taxed. And there was also an understanding of small businesses in that particular locality that also wanted to understand what kind of system is in existence regarding taxation. So to help our catchment to understand that, we actually brought in the ZIMRA officials that came through, whereby we had the commissioner coming through to actually talk to the business as well as the miners regarding the operations of ZIMRA and how they can work well with ZIMRA and what ZIMRA stands for and how best they can be able to benefit from the existence of ZIMRA in this particular framework.
Media houses have identified the lack of dedicated business journalism training as a challenge. Consequently, journalists in the market are unable to report on business issues in an engaging and informative way, nor proactively identify and investigate daily life issues facing businesses, especially micro and small businesses. By identifying 2 academic institution partners, the National University of Science and Technology in Bulawayo and the Great Zimbabwe University in Masvingo. BEEP sought to address the challenges of the lack of dedicated business journalism training.
The Department of Journalism and Media Studies had been offering a module on business and financial reporting before, and that module we have had it running for part 4, and as a department we started discussing in terms of how we can revive, can improve on that module. And we met Zimbisa. We brought up that issue of the module and our views and strategies that we had about that module moving forward. The process really started with us having meetings with Zimbisa. I think we met for more than 3 times, and after that we then agreed in terms of how we would want to go about with the introduction of a new module. Zimbisa then recommended to us that perhaps it would be better for us if we were to get a consultant, and we agreed on a consultancy from outside, and we settled for Professor Nixon Kariati from the University of Pretoria in South Africa. He himself is a journalist and particularly a business reporter, and has also taught business and economic reporting at Rhodes, Wits, and the University of Pretoria. So he came down here, and we had a meeting with him first. It was a meeting between him and the lecturers, and during that meeting it was also part of a training. Our own lecturers, those who don't teach business and economic reporting, also were taken through the basics of business and economic reporting. Then thereafter we went into crafting or developing the first draft of the business and economic reporting module. After that, the consultants went with our input. He sat down and worked on a draft module. He was also using the old business and financial reporting module that I spoke about earlier on to actually craft this new module. The process then saw us with a draft. The process saw us then consulting the industry, and we invited the editors, the business reporters. They came in, we met for a day, and they also gave us their input, and thereafter we then incorporated the input. And after incorporating the input, we also agreed that we need to do a pilot test of the module, and the pilot test of the module involved organizing a one-day workshop with our students. That one-day workshop with our students is when we are now testing the module to see whether that module would work if we are to take it out there into the industry or to use it for our own students. So this is the process that has led us to where we are. From our consultation with the editors, the editors were happy. They were very excited about the module, because firstly, our own students and lecturers, we had also done studies of our own local media in terms of their reporting of business and financial issues, and we have identified a number of issues from those findings. And one of them was that the business story is not told, and if the business story is told, that business story is elitist. It's like the reporters are reporting to the elite. Those news stories, they don't appeal to the general members of the public. What we had also discovered was the fact that there were several myths around business and economic reporting. Some of them among our own students and others with the practicing journalists. Among our own students, I would tell you that the module started as a core course, and we moved it into an elective. And when we moved it into an elective, very few students signed up for that module. And what we then discovered, that general feeling among students was that business and economic reporting was difficult. Business and economic reporting was boring, and as a result, they were not keen to sign up for that module. Then among the practicing journalists, what we also discovered with them was very few journalists understand or have the basics of business and economic reporting. Most of them, they are just thrown into those desks. They are ill-equipped, and as a result, they are finding it difficult to write economic stories that would be interesting. They are also finding it difficult to package those stories so that they can sell their own publications. Long-term strategy as a department is to actually introduce a module and actually have people specializing on business and economic reporting. They will do the basics journalism reporting modules, but part 2 moving forward, we want to see them now specializing into, we want to produce the best business and economic reporters. This is our idea. We don't want to just produce a jack of all trades.
Apart from reporting skills and the ability to analyze business issues, a good journalist needs credible sources. However, the scoping exercise that had been carried out showed that business organizations and experts on the business sector were unwilling to speak to journalists, wary of being misquoted or misunderstood, as more often than not, coverage of their business issues led to sensationalized coverage, doing more harm than good to their businesses. The media component supported its partner business membership organizations, including the Zimbabwe Association of Microfinance Institutions, the Zimbabwe Association of Dairy Farmers, and the Grain Millers Association of Zimbabwe, as well as partner research institutions like Ziparu, to test the services of locally trained media relations consultants and help the organizations see the value of investing in media relations services to enhance their advocacy work and increase their visibility. The work done under the component has also equipped the consultants working on the program with better skills and greater networks.
I've had a fantastic time. It has given me an opportunity first to reach out to different colleagues across our media sector. Secondly, to reach out into different newsrooms and to see the levels where we are, and to compare and to make a contribution as well in terms of capacity building. So I enjoyed it. It's something I could do. Yes, I'd been contracted as a consultant, but I've built on in terms of my own work today from that experience.
It is envisaged that the trained media relations consultants will continue to bridge the gap between news sources and news producers so that at the end, the BEEP vision for a media market system where media houses proactively produce sustainable business products that effectively support dialogue and consultation on relevant business environment issues is realized.
We are hoping that, as we say, that we are not players in the market system, but just facilitators, that the system should be able to continue even without our facilitation, since we are not players in the system. So, for instance, we are hoping that the organizations that have worked with our media relations people, because the media relations people are still offering that service and they're still in the market. So we are hoping that every time they've got a need for media relations people, they are going to employ those people and make sure they get the services. We are hoping, for instance, the universities that we have helped develop curricula for business studies, they are going to offer these courses even without us, because it's not something that we came to support saying we are going to pay you to deliver this, but they are going to continue offering those courses even without our facilitation. We are hoping also that the links, the networks that we've established between our partners, for instance, between Chronically and NAST, that is going to continue, that NAST is going to continue offering training even for the mid-career journalists in the Chronicle, and also doing some research, because we realize that when you look at our universities, there's a lot of research that they are capable of doing, but the media houses are not taking advantage of that. So we're hoping that even without us in the picture, if Chronicle needs some research done, they can get some students from NAST who can do that. If Sunday Mail needs some research done, they can get students from the Harare Polytech to do that. So we are hoping that the market system itself is going to continue, and at the end of the day, the vision that we had is that the media becomes a great player, a facilitator for dialogue for business environment reforms. And so we are hoping that even as we come to the end of this phase, the media houses are going to continue to be players to demand for reforms in the business sector on behalf of the business people in the private sector, and also the vulnerable people in our groups. So we look at the informal market, the women and the young people.